Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Please settle down so that we can begin shortly.
Ladies and gentlemen, those who are still upstanding, take your seats, please. We are about to continue with the session that we had to adjourn before lunch. Those who are online have already settled in for the session, so kindly those who are attending the conference in person, take your seats. Those who are still upstanding. Those at the entry point, kindly take a seat. This is the adjourned session before lunch. The power situation has been rectified. We do not expect to have any power interruptions as there were before lunch. So the second session is moderated by none other than Zhang, the Director, Technical Cooperation Division of IMO. And panelists include the representatives from IMO, Ethiopia, Egypt, Mauritius, Sierra Leone, and Namibia. Mr. Zhang, take it away.
Sorry about the confusion. Distinguished participants, good afternoon. I'm really sorry that we had to stop in the morning with the interruption of power supply. I hope you all had a very good lunch and you have the full energy to continue. So without further ado, I will ask the second panelist to introduce yourself and give your comments about your feelings of the technical cooperation till now and the assessment you will give the technical cooperation of IMO and any problems, any areas to be improved, or any suggestion, whatever you had. Yeah, please.
Thank you, sir. Once again, I am Rear Admiral Ashraf Huda. I am General Manager of Flag State Control and at Egyptian Authority for Maritime Safety. I'm honored to be here with you, sir. Once I want to express my great appreciation of Egyptian Authority Maritime Safety for appreciation for the AAMA for what she is doing and her steps and her action to make the African country more effective and more great in IMO society. About our experience with the technical committee for IMO, actually we had a very good one. In 2016 we had an MSAS audit scheme for Egypt, and it was the first one for us. So we asked for help from the technical committee from the IMO, and we had three sessions or three help from IMOs. Each one of them was for 4 days with some consultants from IMO. The first one it was a national workshop on the implementation of the IMO member state audit scheme, how they have to act with it. It was in May 2016. And the second one was also for 4 days with IMO consultant. It was for assessment for flag state and the board reception facilities, capabilities at Egypt. And the third one was for National Advisory Mission on Maritime Legislation. And this one is very difficult, that we have to change in our doctrine or our constitution to manage with the IMO enforcement and so on. And the last one, but not least, it was the help of IMO technical cooperation. And in 2018, we hosted the AAMA conference in Egypt, in Sharm el-Sheikh, and it was supported very well from the IMO technical committee program. And second one, for what can IMO do differently, if any? Actually, we can make help or make use of the IMO office that has already been in Cote d'Ivoire or in Kenya or Ghana. And finally, the last one, it will be open in Egypt, which will cover the North Africa. So we can ask them for help for make enforcement for the IMO state enforcement instruments. And actually, I take from the words that the IMO head for the technical committee mentioned in the 5th AAMA conference. He argued the AAMA countries to ask for their help in any area they need. So that's what we can ask them to do. Actually, we joined, my team joined in the auditing for other countries that is done by the IMO. And this is very helpful for us to enforce the instrument for the IMO in our countries. So that's it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, especially for the providing the updated information on the regional office, representative office of IMO in Egypt. For your information that this initiative was adopted in last year's Technical Cooperation Committee, which is another milestone for IMO's technical cooperation activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to be back here in Mombasa again, and thank you for IMO for providing this session, and thank you for Kenya for hosting us. We have been welcomed in a very good manner. Thank you for that, and thank you for your attention. I'm Captain Noel from Mauritius. I'm the Deputy Director of Shipping, and happy to be with you this afternoon to share our experience on training and. Okay, regarding IMO role in providing, there's several aspects on it. We had the support of IMO for training personnel. In many aspects, there are the personnel from the shipping division and other department who have had the facility to go to WMU or to Malta for formation. There's also the small seminars, which is hosted sometimes by IUMOU, we've got also the support of a technical committee on that. This is one aspect. There's the training of personnel, but there's not only the training of personnel. There's also on technical matters where we get the support of IMO. For example, if we have, you know that Mauritius, lately we had a lot of vessels that got stranded on our coast. The most famous one being the Wakasho. And this has brought forward that we've got certain weaknesses in our system. For example, we know that our law doesn't cover a lot of aspects of this, and we want to review it. We made an appeal to IMO, and they agreed to support us in the reviewing of our Maritime Merchant Shipping Act, which we are now going to see that it complies with all aspects of convention. When it was done in 2007, since that there are new things that are coming. So we are going to review that, and we've got the technical support on that from IMO. Other aspect too, that as I say, there are a lot of vessels that got stranded on the coast of Mauritius. One, there is a fishing vessel, for example, called Yufeng, that went aground in St. Brendan and was abandoned there. No, we were not able to trace the owner. There again, we took on ourselves to do the salvage, to attempt a salvage operation of the ship. But again, as a maritime administration, we don't have the know-how. So on this side too, we have had the support of IMO, where we ask for support, and IMO assigned certain technician from European Union, and they came along and helped us about the methodology to do, and also on how to contain the pollution problem and things like that. So this is another aspect. A third one is regular seminars, but regional or national one, which is being done. Even now, coming here, we have one on maritime safety, port security, which is ongoing here in Mauritius. So for all this we thank IMO and for all this support. And in brief, this is the three ways that we've been regularly in the past, and even actually we are working close together. And IMO is there, and when we've got something, we also discuss very often. We've got certain person at home who are auditors on IMSAS, so we've got a good network in IMO. So speaking to the people there, sometimes we decide on the way to go along. There is also, we've got a problem of how to apply PSSA around Mauritius to keep safe distances. As you know, in the southern part of Indian Ocean is very busy nowadays. There's a lot of ship blowing around. So sometimes you've got to do studies and see how to manage the risk that all this entails. And so even there, sometimes we don't have the expertise. So IMO is always there when we speak up to them and say, well, what is the procedure? How do you go along? So even if there's, as I say, there's the formation of personnel, but not only that. On technical matters too, IMO is there, and sometimes, if necessary, if they will send someone to help us draft legislation, how to make an application for restricted area, and all these kind of things. So in brief, this was what I've got to say about the cooperation we've enjoyed with IMO. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on the IMO's work of technical cooperation. A few points you mentioned, including the training of personnel and the drafting of maritime legislation. I think both activities are at the priority area of IMO's capacity building activities. You do point out the need for the knowledge and the training of certain aspects of particular sensitive areas in the sea, right? I think, to my knowledge, TCD hasn't carried out any activities like the sort. So I think it could be taken on board in our planning process for the future. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, thank you. My name is George Chatumbu from Namibia, the Director of Maritime Affairs. Okay. First and foremost, would like to thank for IMO for his assistance. Would like to thank for IMO for the assistance which we received. And we'd like especially to thank for Mr. William Asu, Deputy Director of Technical Cooperations of IMO, for his advice and the technical the assistance which he gave to us as Namibians. I used to knock his office all the time when I was there. He had a open office for everyone who is looking for technical assistance. I'm also telling you people, my colleague Africans, you can also knock his office. His office is open. Okay. Okay. Next, I would like to share the experience with you about Namibia. Namibia is very unique. Many of you African countries, you may be aware that Namibia was the last colony, and in Namibia, we are using the 1951 Merchant Shipping Act up to now, and we are using 1891 admiral jurisdictions. These are acts which we inherited from colonial apartheid regime, and it is still in force up to now. And therefore, I would like to request the Director General, which is the Director of Technical Cooperation, and Mr. Asu, to continue to finish this process. Experience which I can share with you is that we requested IMO technical assistance. IMO sent the consultant, they drafted all the registrations. I was in the divisions, I went to the cabinet, then we find that it was not in the format of the Namibian Hebrew and South African style. Therefore, it could not be implemented here. To run for IMO, when we are going to make assessment, when you go to the country, because the reason what we learned is that Namibia does not have capacity to put those legislation which was drafted by a layman from the consult from IMO to the Namibian South African style. That is number one. Number two, I think when he consulted for IMO going there, he should also look on that, oh, do you have this capacity to do this? Or which style? Oh, then that maybe will resolve a problem. We are very thankful, but up to now, we cannot implement that. And in Namibia, we cannot do anything because of the 1951 Merchant Shipping Act. Namibia, we are a money system, but the IMO require you to domesticate the convention which you acceded to put in the regulation. Now, in this process now, you to go to the minister, which as Namibia, we cannot do anything because the 1951 Merchant Shipping Act is like a constitution. And then you cannot do anything. You cannot do anything, you cannot make a regulation which is contradicting the Merchant Shipping Act. All what we are receiving, what we are doing now, we are just stuck. We wrote a letter to IMO again, requesting IMO, please, can you help us? We are waiting now for that, but I think I share with you this experience that my colleague Africans, when you are going to request assistance, try to put full information. It's not the fault of Mr. Asu, Velem Asu. He was there willing to help. I was there in his office all the time. But because we could not tell them that, okay, we don't have a people to put this one in the maritime, in our domestic, we could not do anything. And we are very thankful. And for your information, we have acceded to IMO conventions, but we cannot implement them. We are receiving all this training coming. When they come, we are telling them that no. But okay, we are talking about all these conventions, Maritime Labor, everything. The 1951 Merchant Shipping Act cannot, it broke us. And even we cannot even put up institution for training. We cannot go to the white list. This is, I'm sorry to share with you this, but I'm just emphasizing that if you don't give a collective formation, you can receive assistance, but you cannot go further. You will continue going around table like what Namibia is doing now. I'm sharing that information, and I thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the very straightforward and constructive advice. I believe the issue is a multifaceted issue with regard to the technical adversary to assist a nation to draft the secondary legislation to implement IMO conventions. Of course, every country has its own characteristic, its own special level of economic development. Sometimes an expert or consultant may be fully aware of what is involved in the whole project or program. However, there's another issue we also need to take into account. For instance, you just mentioned the Maritime Labor Convention 2006. For the implementation of that convention, if my memory serves me right, during the negotiation of the same convention, there was a overwhelming accepted principle. That is, you cannot stick to your own national law as an excuse that you don't want to accept international regulations. Put it another way, that national law is not an excuse for you. If you have already ratified or accepted international law, the existing national law shouldn't be your excuse to resist the international obligations you have already accepted through the ratification. Yes.
On that regard, there was a Gabi Anaris, ILOM, International Labour Convention, came to Namibia, and then they point out that without repealing the 1950 Merchant Shipping Act, we cannot go ahead. We need to repeat first the Merchant Shipping Act, the 1951, the heritage. And it is apartheid. You know how it's apartheid. There are some things which cannot. That is what they said, and we cannot do anything. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. And I think from IMO's part, we will keep in contact with your administration and try to find out where the real problem lies and improve our technical cooperation work on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for giving me the opportunity to sit among the elders here. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my delegates and stakeholders of IMO, I represent the Executive Director, Sierra Leone Maritime Administration. My name is John Okosun. I'm the Senior Reconciliation Manager. Please, Mr. Chairman, permit me to tender our apology for the Executive Director is unable to be here because Mr. President is having a program for which ministers, deputy ministers are all in attendance. But I will be giving a speech which he gave to me shortly. With me is Mrs. Princess Kanu. We are coming from Sierra Leone, and we bring you greetings from Sierra Leone. The International Maritime Organization is a specialized agency of the United Nations that is responsible for promoting safe, secure, and efficient shipping on clean oceans. The IMO provides technical assistance to its member states to support their efforts in making their obligations under international maritime conventions and regulations. One of the key areas where IMO provides technical assistance to Sierra Leone Maritime Administration is in the development and implementation of national maritime policies and legislations. The IMO provides guidance on the drafting of laws, regulations that comply with international maritime standards, as well as assisted Sierra Leone Maritime Administration in the development of strategies to implement these laws effectively. The IMO also provides technical assistance in the areas of maritime safety and security. This includes providing guidance, the development of safety management system for ships, as well as assisting Sierra Leone Maritime Administration in the development of maritime security plans to prevent and respond to threats such as piracy and terrorism. Furthermore, the IMO provides technical assistance in area of environmental protection. This involves providing guidance in development of measures to prevent and mitigate the impact of shipping on the maritime environment, as well as assisting member states in implementation of international environmental convention, such as MAPO. Overall, the technical assistance provided by IMO to SLMA, that is Sierra Leone Maritime Administration, play a crucial role in ensuring safe, secure, and efficient shipping on clean ocean by providing guidance and expertise in the area of policy and legislations, development, safety and security, and environmental protection. The IMO helped SLMA, that is Sierra Leone Maritime Administration, to meet their obligations under International Maritime Convention and regulation, while also supporting the economic development through the sustainable use of oceans. In addition to that, I will just have to appreciate and thank the IMO on behalf of the government of Sierra Leone and on behalf of the Executive Director for providing the necessary assistance in helping us to domesticate our STCW. And we are at the stage of implementation now. I think that is the message I have for now. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Director General, for sending that very kind remarks through you. Distinguished delegates, the TCD's activity was normally guided by the policy directions of the Technical Cooperation Committee. Under this guidance, currently TCD have 10 focus areas of activity when we plan for the current biennium ITCP, and since the plan for the next biennium is already underway, so we would like to seek your advice on how should we improve the current focus areas, priority areas, and the way we conduct the technical cooperation. You see, the current 10 focuses include the improve maritime safety and the human element. That's the first one, safety first, as always. And the second is the protect of the marine environment and respond to climate change. The third, of course, is one part of the IMO Convention. It's the to enhance facilitation and security of international trade. The fourth focus area is developed human and institutional capacity. The next one is assist maritime legislation, policy, and infrastructure. The sixth is to support maritime development. That is the name of Williams subdivision. And the seventh is prepare member states for IMO audits. I think there are many countries currently expecting audit after the COVID is over. And the seventh is support women in maritime. This is the highlight of the current biennium of technical cooperation. You all know that the IMO Assembly has designated the 18th of May as the International Day for Women in Maritime, which as a IMO's effort to contribute to the Sustainable Development Goals. The next focus area is provide targeted assistance to Cs and LDCs. And the last one is deliver immediate response to emergency incidents. That's the current focus area we are using for these two biennium, these 2 years. So for the next biennium, do you think these areas is sufficient enough, or you think there should be some other areas to be added, or the current areas, the activities on the current areas need to be reduced? I will first give the mic to Isabel.
Thank you again. I hope the light will not go when it is my turn. The ITCP program is quite vast, and if we cope up with that, it's really a good achievement. But there are some areas of, I could not call them improvement, but areas that may need your focus. We are just coming out of the COVID pandemic, so some of the activities were somehow slowed down, and now we are going back. And the digitalization, as you heard in the morning, the cyber attack is not remote anymore. SAMSA was attacked a few weeks ago, and it is happening everywhere. So the ITCP may focus on how member states get capacity building on this area. The IMSAS audit, we just finished it some months ago. Some member states are going to have it, some already had it, and the findings need the touch of ITCP. That is also another focus area. But more than everything, my advice to the director is that you are now going to lose your vibrant team. William Mazu, Christina, I think they might be leaving you soon. That is the information I have. So the knowledge, the wisdom, their communication skill, and the culture, the African culture they were having, it was a big asset. It has been a big asset. Before they move forward, try to tap it, and on your new team, try to use the same or a similar attitude, so that we'll have a very conducive working environment with IMO. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Believe me or not, they are so special. They are the so special asset for TCD as well as for the whole Secretariat. I also want to take this opportunity to express my sincere appreciation of their work, the way they are doing their work. Egypt?
Sir, the areas that you mentioned, sir, it's almost covering everything, so we can't add it anything more than what you said, sir. But I want to emphasize on the training that for our guys for sharing in the auditing scheme for other countries, because this is very helpful for us to improve our capabilities in enforcing the IMO instrument in our countries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Please.
Yes, as for me, well, all what is being done is okay, but as you know, things are not static as far as IMO and legislation is concerned. When I went for my ticket I did my master mariner, GMDSS didn't exist. So every time there are new things coming, and we'll have to adapt to it. But something which is dear to me, which I think here in Africa, there should be more participation in the various in the works of IMO. For example, the subcommittees, maritime safety committees, and things like that. It would be a good thing to see more Africans open it to us, give us the opportunity to do that. During the COVID, the different working session was online, and then it stopped. Maybe it should continue, so that everyone, even if we stay at home, we can participate into it and contribute to it. Our contribution as Africans, I think we've got our own needs, and we should be having our own voice too in the various committees of IMO. And I think on this aspect too, maybe we could get your support in that sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Obviously, that's a very good initiative and suggestion. I think, the voice of Africa, if I'm too rude, please forgive me, but within IMO, I'm not seeing that Africa has the most influential voice, at least by now. So, how to address that issue? I think there are two aspects you need to consider. Firstly, as always, human element is the top issue you need to resolve. For many years, African has sent students to WMU, to IMLI, and to other IMO training programs. And these graduates can be further enhanced and keep their knowledge updated and give them the direct responsibility to follow what's going on outside the world, what's going on inside IMO. That's the first part. And the second part is that there is a need to regional or sub-regional coordination and cooperation. For instance, through the platform of AAMA, that you can have the idea of how should we cooperate together, coordinate our positions in the international meeting, and what kind of expertise, what kind of experience you need to be provided by the AAMO's technical team, and then we can work together to enhance the level of participation of African countries in IMO. Thank you.
Thank you. And maybe what I can say regarding to the actual what IMO is doing well. And maybe what we need is that to speed up when the country requests the assistance, and also to evaluate the priority. As I mentioned, like in the situation of Namibia, we are stuck. Okay. As regard to the training of IMO providing for human resources, W and IMRI, if there is a possibility, maybe we may find also when this student graduate, if IMO can come up with a program for attachment, for experience. Because me, as I'm speaking, I am a product of IMRI. When I come back, I tried to what, but experience and expertise really is not the same as what you learn in the class. But even the advertisement, people are asking, what's your experience? That's why some of these IMRI graduate, though some end up in the not well authorized for that. But if there is a possibility for a program, maybe for those countries, if they can request it for their student to be attached, or can be a regional area in Africa where we can say, okay, anyone from, he can go to Kenya or to Nigeria or to South Africa for practice experience. I think that will help if it's possible. Thank you.
Thank you. From a graduate point of view, because me myself graduated from WMU, I think it's our wish, to attach together with colleagues to keep our knowledge updated all the time and give our contribution to the national maritime development. That's a very good idea. I think around this area in Africa, there's a lot of such sightings of the network of experts and the graduates comes together with the purpose of enhance their involvement in the maritime world. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. While you were listing the policies and programs of IMO, one comes to my mind, which is the WIWA, Women in Maritime. We have a chapter that is being powered by the Executive Director. He has been doing wonderfully well by supporting the women in maritime in SLMA, that is Sierra Leone. And we have sent a lot of staff to Sweden for studies, and some of them are still there. And we look forward to having more support. Currently, we have had a lot of our staff, technical staff, who are IMO certified. Unfortunately, they are not here because they also fall into the category of persons who are being restricted for now to move out of the country. I think, if you ask my opinion, what we have been doing so far in our organization, in our administration, we have even taken maritime to the school, primary school, secondary school, to catch them young. because what we are looking at is the blue economy, which is very, very key to the whole world. We're trying to catch them young so they will come on board. Mr. Chairman, I don't want to waste our time. I think we are in line with what IMO has given on to us, and we are working with the policies and programs that have been scheduled for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Panel led there by Zhang. I would want to now open the floor, if you allow me, Chair, to questions, since we've already heard from IMO as well as Ethiopia, Egypt, there, Mauritius, Sierra Leone, and Namibia in regard to the technical assistance and how it has impacted, as well as highlighting the missing links. Now we open the floor. Those who may have questions to the panel. Yes, kindly let's have some support in terms of the distribution of mics. Here at the front, we have a gentleman. Yes. There.
Thank you very much to all the panelists and the chair for a very interesting session. My question is directed to the Namibian delegation, whom I've known for more than 10 years, Mr. Shatumbu. In Africa, there is a saying that you can take a cow to the river, but you cannot force it to drink water. In terms of technical assistance, IMO has given a lot of technical assistance to Namibia during my time. In fact, the first mission I sent to Namibia was 1999 to review their maritime legislation. I sent further missions. He knows that one time we sent a mission to draft for them. We drafted all the regulations and everything. But then the onus is on the country to take the bill, the regulation, to their parliament and get it done. IMO cannot do that for any country. In fact, there are a lot of countries that I sent missions to after Namibia, like Gambia, for example. They were able to take everything to parliament and get the Gambia Maritime Authority established. And even Kenya was 2006. So the question I made, IMO can give you technical assistance, but there is a certain thing for you to be talking about 1951, when you know what IMO has done for you, and it is up to you now to domesticate it. You have come to me and told me when I was an IMO about the issues you had internally, until whoever was preventing it resigned or retired. But we are still listening to the same story. So please, my advice to all of us as Africans, we can get technical assistance from UN, from the multilateral, but we have to take ownership and ensure that it is done. Thank you. And even when William succeeded me at IMO in 2010, I briefed him about Namibia, and he took it up, and he also did a lot for Namibia. And let him continue.
Well, it's a challenge. It seems that that's a challenge to...
I think I've been ambushed. Ordinarily, I wouldn't have wanted to speak. Mine is to deliver as much as possible and as much as resources can carry. One thing is that the member states are always right, and IMO is there to support them. But behind closed doors, we tell ourselves the truth. Now, in the case of Namibia, it's just coincidental. I had just clicked send an email now to Namibia, to a representative in London, providing suggestions and dates to continue the implementation of this activity. So it's coincidental. It wasn't planned. But the point JJ is making is correct. You know, we keep doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. It doesn't happen. IMO provides technical assistance. the member states has a responsibility. It's cooperation. Cooperation. One coes, the other operates. So we keep going and expect you to operate, and then it works. So you have a responsibility, we have a responsibility as well. So let's work together, to see how we can further assist you. But this is not the forum to do that. But just to let you know that we'll work with you and we'll continue to support you. But you also have a responsibility. Thank you.
Allow me, excuse me, before you respond to that, let's take another question, then we can have the panel respond. Is the lady fine? Fine. Then our last one, the gentleman behind the lady in glasses. Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm Rosa Sobrinho from Angola. We followed, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much to the panelists. Good afternoon to all. We have followed with great concern the presentation of our distinguished delegate from Namibia on their experience regarding the IMO assistance in drafting their national maritime legislation. We understood that the consultant was there to assist in the domestication of the legislation, and this was ineffective according to the explanation of Namibia. We also have followed the explanation from Mr. Azu and from Mr. Shiundu, and our question is the following. The IMO does not take into consideration the concrete specifications of the recipient member state. First, if they did, we would not have been in this situation of duplications, because what is going on in Namibia is a duplication. The consultant was there, was working with them, and now Namibia is going through all the process again without the IMO. The second question is, what is the role of the IMO regional presences on this regard? We as Angola, we think that if the regional presence was a little bit more engaged with the member states, if we worked together with them, with the regional presences, maybe these things were not going to happen, because we are dealing directly with the regional presence. We would strongly suggest the IMO to start considering this, in having the regional presence to have a direct role with the AAMA member states. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. One last final one. There is a gentleman. Fine. Then we'll take this one here, please. Then we can have the responses.
Merci, Madame. Merci, Monsieur le Président. Pardon. Je voudrais avant tout rendre...
Let them have the gadgets, please.
Un peu de bousculade, là. On va se bousculer, là. Et il est temps qu'on parle français, non? D'accord. On va marquer le coup, là. Fatigué. Bien, merci Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais avant tout rendre hommage, à l'Organisation maritime internationale à travers votre direction qui, j'avoue, et pour être honnête, en fait, aucun pays n'a pas pu bénéficier d'une assistance technique. Et je pense qu'en fait, c'est à travers le TCP que beaucoup de nos pays ont pu, n'est-ce pas, évoluer, reformer leur législation maritime. Et nous avons, les pays d'Afrique, de nos pays africains, ont eu cette chance avec une équipe à l'époque d'Alex Choudou qui, on va pas dire tout haut, mais qui, grâce à lui, nous avons, beaucoup de pays ont eu un peu été favorisés. Je crois que peut-être le mot est léger, mais même que certains pays ont pu bénéficier par rapport à d'autres des assistances techniques. Donc peut-être qu'en fait tous les pays n'ont pas été de même palier. Mais je crois qu'en fait en 2023, nous devons, nous, pays africains, réfléchir sur une harmonisation de notre législation maritime. Pourquoi ne pas aujourd'hui envisager à ce que nous disposions d'une seule législation maritime. Comment expliquer qu'un navire battant pavillon africain va de port en port confronté à des différentes législations, alors que nous voulons développer une flotte africaine? Je crois que nous devons dès maintenant réfléchir, au lieu que chaque pays puisse avancer un programme d'assistance technique, pourquoi l'Afrique, à travers nos institutions internationales, régionales, travailler sur une législation maritime harmonisée, parler de même langage, de même, parce que avoir disposé d'un seul outil. Et je crois qu'au lieu de pas que chaque pays puisse parler de sa voix, puis qu'on puisse parler d'une seule même voix. Et je pense qu'en fait, Monsieur le directeur, l'équipe de la coopération technique pourrait accompagner, concrétiser, réaliser. Ça peut éventuellement prendre peut-être, je ne sais pas, quelques années, mais laisser un héritage, n'est-ce pas, à nos prochaines générations. Merci.
Thank you. One final question. The gentleman in maroon, please. Mike. There, yeah. Then the panel can respond. Yes.
Thank you, moderator. Mine is not really a question. It's a prayer, it's a request. When you look at the AAMA membership is attributed to coastal countries. That is where you find maritime authorities. That is where you find, port authorities. So my prayer to IMO and AAMA and the similar institution is, what can we possibly do for African landlocked countries? Yes, countries like Kenya, Namibia, South Africa, they have been endowed with, access, God-given access to oceans, Indian Ocean, Atlantic Ocean, But together with this privilege, we need to put our head together and see what we can do for landlocked countries. IMO, if I may ask you, what have you done for Burundi, for Uganda? Are you providing the technical advisory services you have been talking about for Namibia, or what you have given to Kenya? Let us take an example of Ethiopia, where we have a national shipping authority. Can't this be established in other black landlocked countries in Africa? You can't possibly develop yourself for the benefit of Africa, leaving behind these 16, landlocked countries in Africa. We need to bring them on board. IMO need to establish national shipping authorities, or rather change the mindset in these other African countries so that they establish national shipping authorities in those countries. There are a lot to be gained, especially with the operationalization of the African Continental Fleet Area. So what is being done for Kenya, for Namibia, for Botswana, for South Africa, need to be replicated in Botswana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Burundi, Rwanda, Uganda, Central Africa, and many more, landlocked countries. And Chad and, Mauritania, So please, it's a prayer, it's a request. I hope I have made my point. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now let's have the panel react to those questions. But before that, there's an announcement from IMO, Captain Dallas. Those individuals who have been sponsored by IMO, he would like to see you in batches of 3, and he'll be walking to your seat area. Then you'll kindly step off but the conference still proceeds. He's Captain Dallas. Now, Zhang, take it away.
Okay, moderator. Firstly, I will give the floor to our friend from Namibia to reply the first question, and then with regard to, with regard to the question about RPO and the unification of standards of Africa and the landlocked countries' TSA assistance, I will let William to express his opinion. You go first.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to clarify this, and my senior, Mr. Chihundu, and Mr. William Asu, we are very, Namibia is very thankful for your help. But let me make it clear. It's true what you are saying by the beginning. The mission came. Now it is a process. And the process is very slow in Namibia of registration because of its unique. If I can explain, when Namibia got independence, the constitution, all the laws should remain in force. I'm talking about family law, constitutional, all the things have to be repealed. Okay, the process which I'm trying to explain, when now, me myself, I was involved. Mr. William Asu was very helpful. I went to Ghana, we do everything. We came up with all the regulations. Now, this is a process. When we took this, when we took this to the Cabinet on Legislation Committee, before you take to the Parliament, the ministers find out that, George, all these regulations, they are not in Hebrew style and South African style. Can you do it? I say, no, I don't have that capacity. What you can advise us? I advise my cabinet that, okay, we should write a letter to IMO to say that, thank you, but everything is okay, but this needs to be put in Namibian style and South Africa style to implement it. When that one, I took it to the office of Mr. William Asu, and you, Mr. Shund, also you was there. We went there with my permanent secretary and our ambassador, but also you mentioned that, yes, we know. Always it's a push and pull. There are some people who does not want, but that is not our problem. We want the thing to be materialized. I think it is sorted, and as we are talking now, I think in the table of the Director General, Mr. Asu, we in Namibia, we wrote a letter, and it is there we are waiting for you to help us to put this one in Hebrew and South African style. Also, Namibia, we tried our best. They send me to IMO, I learn all this, and it's when I come back, I'm the director of Namibia, of Maritime, I advise that we cannot do anything because IMO require us to domesticate these conventions, and this Merchant Shipping Act is blocking us. Also, the University of Namibia, they came, we want to pass this syllabus to training our people. We don't have people, but we are saying that we are waiting to repeal this, the Merchant Shipping Act. That's why it's very urgent, and it is also good. That's why I hope, Mr. William Asu, before you retire, not like Mr. Chihundu who retire trying to push, but you should put this one in place. Finish the business. Liberate the colonial apartheid. And finish. We don't need to argue on this. Thank you.
Indeed. That's quite a challenge to Mr. Azu. We have exactly 2 minutes and a half, so kindly panel as you're responding. 2.5 minutes as you're responding to the questions that have been posed. There's a question that is still hanging. What is IMO doing for landlocked countries? And also the presence of IMO within the region so that it can be more effective. Those are just some of the views.
Thank you. Mr. George is conspiring to make sure that I don't leave IMO. That's a different subject matter. I will start with my brother over there about the landlocked countries. First, Kenya is not a landlocked country, so it's not in that category. We are in Mombasa already, and you can see the coast over there. So it's not, that's out of the question. But the two critical countries you mentioned, Burundi, Malawi, those two countries are not even IMO member states. Notwithstanding, IMO does not discriminate in terms of technical assistance. We don't discriminate coastal, flag, or landlocked countries, or whatever categories you may give them. So we have a dedicated program. I've been to Burundi myself, trying to encourage the administration to ratify IMO instrument, become a member state, and benefit from technical assistance. They have no interest. I'm saying this publicly. Malawi, incidentally, Malawi just benefited from technical assistance. I went myself towards the end of last year, and we are supporting the Maritime Institute in Monkey Bay. Supply them about 20 pieces of desktop computers, provided internet. The school has no internet. So, but we don't like to, blow our trumpet, but because you raised it. So we are doing those things. And then a country like Rwanda, I've been to Rwanda, they are not member states of IMO. But they have the capacity to even host IMO activities. They hosted Djibouti. The activity in Djibouti, Almira is here. We have done that in Rwanda. So IMO does not discriminate. And I don't believe there's any country that is landlocked, typically. I would rather say that they are landly connected. You are connected somehow. If you don't have a coastline, Malawi has one of the longest body of water, but they have no exit to the open seas. And they do maritime on those. So technically speaking, there is no landlocked country as such because they benefit from shipping. I will move straight to regional presence. Now, there's a confusion people have generally. IMO does not have regional offices. We have presence, which is an extension of the headquarters. So whatever the regional coordinators do, Dallas is here, and Dave will join us soon, is an extension of what happens from the headquarters. So IMO cannot operate as WHO or FAO that have purely functional regional offices. We have only presence. And the presence is a function of money. We are sustained by member states. We have no money to establish regional offices. But if the member states wants us to do it, why not? We triple your contribution to IMO, and then we'll establish offices everywhere. But you will still complain. Now, about the audit. The essence of the audit, it's like you going to see your doctor or taking your car to the mechanic to do an MOT, find out what's wrong with my vehicle. That's what the audit does. Based on the audit recommendation and the corrective action plan, member states are urged to come back to IMO. If there are 10 recommendations, you say we can only do 3, we can't do 7. You are urged to come back to IMO and request for assistance, and IMO will render. So I just wanted to make those clarifications. And back to my brother, Mr. Shalumbu, we'll discuss later, not here. So I don't want us to open a Pandora's box. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Azu. Mr. Zhang, as you'd close for us this particular session.
Yes, thank you, William. And I think we had a very interesting and meaningful discussion and dialogue this afternoon. I thank you very much, and I think our panelists deserve a big round of applause. With that, I thank you very much. And
Thank you very much. As Zhang and his panelists get off the stage, kindly let's support him with a round of applause as we usher in the last session for today, and it's going to be moderated. Rather, the MC is none other than Joyce here to take it through Doctory, actually.
Thank you, Regina. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to stand before you to introduce to you session 3 on the outlook of women in the maritime sector in the next decade. As you're well aware, the maritime industry is changing and is expected to make tremendous strides in the coming decade. And women are playing a vital role in that change, as they always have in any sector that they are placed in. To take us through this threshold of this new era is our moderator for the session, Ms. Zama, who is the Chief Financial Officer of the South Africa Maritime Safety Authority. At SAMSA, she has been tasked with assisting the development and implementation of the overall South African Maritime and Safety Authority strategy, and is also ensuring that the entity's mandate is effective and efficiently implemented. Ms. Zama is also a gender advocate for equality and inclusivity and believes in equal opportunities for all. So I now have the pleasure to call on stage Madame Zama to take us through this session. Welcome, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our session, probably the last one that we're going to have this afternoon. Now, the topic that we're going to speak about today is a topic that's very dear to my heart. And why is it dear to my heart? It speaks about how do we ensure that we have gender inclusivity within the maritime sector. And also, it says how do we ensure that we are able to attract and we are able to retain females and women within the maritime sector. I've got my panelists that is going to come in and do the discussions. There's quite a few of them, so I'm going to ask you if I can kindly step here whilst I introduce them, and they will probably come through. I think we've already mentioned what the topic is about. It's the outlook for women in maritime sector in the next decade. The panelist is Mr. Lopez from Cabo Verde. We've got Mr. Jean from Cameroon. Mr. Mercado from Mozambique. Ambassador Madam Nancy. Ms. Fiona. Ms. Rabe Maya Farah from Madagascar. And Mr. Salam from Comoros. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bonjour. Je m'appelle M. Salim, directeur général de l'Agence nationale des affaires maritimes. Comme la thématique de cet après-midi concerne la femme, je suis accompagné par Mme Zainab Abdallah, qui est chef département juridique à l'ANAM, qui est en même temps présidente de la section Oumessa aux Comores. Donc, je vais l'inviter à faire face à la communauté maritime africaine pour son premier déplacement. Merci.
I did say that this is a very important topic that we are having today, and I'm very grateful for the fact that we've actually got so many panelists that are going to discuss something that is very important. Director General, I think I was pleased by the fact that you spoke about this being one of the agendas of the IMO, and also you mentioned the most important thing being that on the 18th of May, we will be celebrating the International Day for Women in Maritime. What I will request is, as I ask the questions and I allow for our panelists to engage, is that they would probably introduce themselves also. Maybe my first question and maybe statement that I ought to make is that women account for only 2% of the world's maritime workforce. Women represent only 1.2% of the global seafarers workforce as per the BIMCO ICS 2001 Seafarers Workforce Report. This is really shocking stats. And the question I think we all ought to ask ourselves is that why is it that women do not join the sector? What are the challenges that are facing women who are seeking to advance a career in the maritime industry? And I'm going to ask if Madagascar can kindly respond to the question, followed by Ms. Fiona.
Thank you, Ms. Sama. My name is Miura Rabimiofar from Madagascar. I work for the Agence Portuaire Maritime et Fluviale, which is the maritime and port authorities for Madagascar. And I'm the Chief Service of Environmental Affairs. And now I'm also the Vice President of National Chapter, WMESA National Chapter. Now regarding the challenge that women are facing, I can say that the inclusion of women in the maritime sector are confronted with many challenges. Women advancement in managerial position or working offshore is often at cost in terms of late marriages, failed marriages, or no marriages. Children are not properly taken care of, or no plans for children. And you know that family is extremely important for women. And women also need to make twice as much efforts as their male counterparts to be recognized. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we could pass to, yes.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fiona Mbandi. I'm the chair for women in the maritime sector in Kenya, WMESA. And I'm privileged to sit here with my patron. So I will go ahead and answer the question asked. The challenges women are facing in joining or advancing the maritime industry include lack of awareness and stereotyping about the ability of women to work in the sector. This is mostly generated from the cultural beliefs that are well entrenched in the history of seafaring. Remember that seafaring is globalized, so we have a lot of multinational crew which have different interpretations on the expectations of women in the sea. So, and women tend to be perceived as for caring jobs, not hard muscle jobs, and also masculine jobs. So you find that there's that stereotyping. There's also lack of information and knowledge. You find that these jobs are not very well known. Like, I'm sure you do not know more than 3 or 4 types of jobs that are in the maritime, but we have many. If we were to discuss all of them, you would be surprised, both in the shore and in the sea. So another issue that has brought the career not been advanced is the slow, effective policies and strategies. There's slow development, such that when people need to go to sea time, like the cadets, we don't find the maritime institutions having access to the training ships. This has already been mentioned earlier on in our discussions during the morning. It's a tall order to find a 12-month sea time for the cadets. So you find this is very difficult for people to go on sea, and this is brought by policies and strategies. On a personal health point, seagoing is a very long period of separation from family. It leads to a lot of loneliness, and I think the seafarers who are in the field here can tell you so. And for a woman who needs to start bringing up children or young ones, they may find this a big challenge. There are actual dangers in the sea, like accidents on board, exposure to weather elements, rough seas, and even piracy exposure. I can also tell you there is also seasickness, and there's very limited space accommodation, so that you do not have enough privacy. And that can also lead to sexual harassment, where you are too near your supervisors and you do not have anywhere to go home. Your home is there, is the ship. So some of these items, which include fatigue and increased workload within the industry, can discourage people advancing in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that response, and I definitely agree. I think it's true. We had a gender-based violence seminar in South Africa, and I think it was aimed at sort of at understanding the challenges that seafarers have whilst they're on sea. And I think one of the questions that actually, or one of the, part of the discussion, some of the things that did come out is what we are discussing here. I think you spoke quite well about the fact that most women want a family. I think when you get to the age of 32, 33, 35, your family actually starts asking you if you're going to give birth. And it's a reality for women, you know. And I would picture that it's even worse if you're on sea. You're doing something that you're passionate about, but yet you've also got this thing that's hanging behind that says that when are you going to become a mother? And as to whether the sea can actually accommodate somebody who needs to take maternity leave to go give birth, come back, you know, as to whether we actually create policies that allow for that. I like the fact that we've also spoken, Fiona, about the fact that there needs to be awareness. Most people are not aware about what happens on sea, the job opportunities that are available at sea. One of the things that we also spoke about is raising awareness in the different countries about maritime. You've also touched something very important, which is policies. And I think my next question is actually going to focus on that. Now, I've already taken us through the alarming stats that I spoke about. However, it is actually shocking that the report says that this is an improvement in comparison to what it was in 2015, and the improvement is said to be sitting at 45.8%. Now, if there is an improvement, it therefore means that there are policies and probably initiatives that we have put that then are showing this positive trend. My question is, please provide, or let's speak about the policies and the initiatives that have been particularly successful in promoting this gender diversity in the maritime industry. How can we replicate it? If we are talking about that we've seen improvement from 2015 to now, how do we replicate these successes that we've seen? And also, how do we actually measure? It's one thing to say we've welcomed so many women within maritime, but how do we actually measure whether they are going to stay, are they enjoying, are they going to go out and raise awareness to say more women should actually join the sector? And to answer this question, I'm going to ask if Ambassador Nancy, you can kindly speak to it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Let me start by doing something unusual. And because the moderator is from South Africa, I hope you will like this. To recognize a lady from Africa, from South Africa, who just won the Global Race 2022. Global Race 2022, the yachting race, yes. Sailing. Kirsten Newshafer. 233 days of sailing solo in a 1960s boat, no internet, no AIS, nothing to connect her with the world, with stops for interviews, with picking letters. And she won, and she arrives at the finishing line and she doesn't know. So I thought that was something nice to acknowledge when we have a panel like this, to show that women can, and they are not limited. And whatever we are talking about is very relevant. And to end it by quoting from a marathon champion, Eliud Kipchoge, who said, no human is limited. So can I customize it for this panel and say no woman and no girl is limited? As we are talking, can we have that at the back of our minds? Now, we're talking about policies that can help or have helped a bit, but I want first to acknowledge that whatever we've done is woefully small. Still at 2%, we have our work cut out for us. And we can't even, we can't take pride in that little figure. So we still have our work cut out for us. But some issues that we need to repeat more is supporting policies and actions geared towards the emergence of role models. Because it is said that you can't imagine it until you see it. And therefore, I want to laud IMO for coming up with networks, women's associations, that have helped women to play a role of mentoring and being visible role model to show young people, young girls, and others that there is a place for them and they can succeed. Now, the other thing that we need to do is or rather we have been doing, is using high-level forums like this one to articulate the issues, and I'm glad that we have a dedicated panel, much like the UN SDGs have a dedicated SDG for women. Having events like this, having dedicated conversation, I think has also helped to bring out the issue, and we need to do more of that. Also, very, very important to align with the UN Women's Empowerment Principles, which provide a framework for companies and organizations to advance gender equality in the workplace, which includes principles related to equal pay, non-discrimination, and the promotion of women in leadership positions. The other thing I want to say is that we've been taught, if there was a lesson we learned from COVID, is that we don't have to take our physical form to the office. And therefore, this is one thing we also must use and continue, creating space for women, for them not to necessarily be in a physical place, and they can work remotely with digitalization, with technical advancement. This is a space we can use, and we must continue using to create jobs that women can tap into, as well as undertake their roles. We also need the men to help us overcome cultural biases. And I'm glad we have men on this panel. When we say that women are bad luck at sea, when we continue saying that they shouldn't, we cannot do that until we have very, very strong men supporting us, so that we begin to break down those barriers and those cultural biases, those stereotypes. So I'm glad that we have our brothers here and our fathers here to lead the way. The last one I want to speak about is to have the language of policy that speaks to the young people. Inclusivity begins in the mind. And we have a new generation, the millennials and the Generation Z, who have put the bar for inclusivity very high. Now, are we going to continue telling them speaking to them in language that is actually sending them away or keeping them out? We're talking of language like able-bodied seaman. If you tell me that and I'm young, and it's in a policy, and it's being communicated from the highest level of the organization that, and yet I cannot be an able-bodied seaman. We're talking of manning agents, man aboard, man aloft. We need to start thinking and meeting the young people, especially now, at the level at which they will appreciate us, because we are competing with other employers. So the more we make our sector speak to the young people, the better it will be for them now to start appreciating and wanting to join. Let's make the maritime sector attractive and modern, and a sector that can speak to as many diverse groupings as possible. And we are talking of a generational shift that doesn't understand that that mindset of a seafarer who is, male, older, that tough guy who speaks in a language of mate and such. So those are some of the issues that I want to bring on.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I think you touched on something very important. You touched on something very, very important when you were discussing the policies. Number one, I definitely agree with you. The fact that we can say that there's a positive trend, but it's just not enough. I like the fact that you spoke to the youth. So, in fact, Africa, the continent, is considered to be the youngest continent in the world. So it makes sense to say that we need to start teaching the youth so that they can be able to carry on with the amazing work that's actually being done. There's also something that you spoke about which I thought was very important, and it's a quote that I always use. It says, "Tell me and I will forget. Teach me, I will remember. Involve me and I would learn." And I think it speaks mostly to what you have said when it comes to mentoring. And I think we must also thank the IMO for the work that they are doing in terms of ensuring that there is mentoring specifically for women. I would also like to pose the same question for Comoros, if they could kindly respond to the same question that I have just asked. Thank you.
Messieurs et mesdames, permettez-moi, avant de répondre à la question qui m'a été posée, de remercier l'OMI pour leur soutien. Je remercie également la région Mombasa et le Kenya Maritime Authority pour l'accueil chaleureux qui nous a été réservé. Et la question qui m'a été posée, c'est de rejoindre certaines initiatives qui ont été mises pour que les femmes évoluent dans le secteur maritime. Dans ce sens, je pense qu'il faudrait élaborer des régulations qui encouragent et qui soutiennent les femmes à poursuivre leur carrière dans le secteur maritime, en leur offrant une égalité des chances et un environnement propice pour leur développement. Il faudrait éliminer les stéréotypes et la discrimination en matière de genre. Les entreprises maritimes doivent s'efforcer à éliminer les préjugés ou discriminations qui existent sur leur lieu de travail, y compris l'égalité de rémunération, bien sûr, et l'égalité des chances et de promotion. Assurer l'égalité d'accès à la formation et à l'éducation. Les femmes devraient avoir un accès aux mêmes possibilités de formation et d'éducation que les hommes dans le secteur maritime précisément. Encourager aussi le leadership et la représentation des femmes. Les entreprises maritimes devraient encourager aussi les femmes à assurer les rôles de leadership et leur fournir le soutien et la formation nécessaire. Encourager le leadership et la représentation des femmes. Aussi, il faudrait que les employeurs doivent offrir des horaires de travail maritime flexibles, des congés parentaux et d'autres mesures pour aider à concilier entre la vie privée et la vie professionnelle. Vous savez que la femme a beaucoup plus de responsabilités dans la famille que l'homme. Donc, si aujourd'hui, la femme a les mêmes horaires de travail qu'être défavorisée et que l'éducation des enfants ne pourra aussi aller dans le bon sens. Il faut créer des lieux de travail favorables qui valorisent la diversité et l'inclusion, où tout le monde se sent respecté et valorisé. Mettre en place dans notre pays ce qui a été pour nous un des initiatives prises, c'est aussi la création. C'est aussi la création de l'association AAMA, section Comores, une association qui n'existait pas bien avant, mais que depuis 2021, cette association est mise en place et favorise la sensibilisation et l'intégration des jeunes et des femmes dans le secteur maritime en organisant des conférences et en sensibilisant les jeunes surtout dans ce sens. Je pense que j'ai presque fini mes propos et je laisse la parole à...
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that you mentioned the fact that policies are great, but they also need to be implemented. So the important comes in is what is it that we are doing as African countries in order to ensure that we take this topic extremely seriously. How are we ensuring that women who are within maritime have got equal rights as males? And how are we ensuring that we create an environment that is conducive for women to be able to join the maritime sector? I will move to my next question, which is the third one. Most recently, the South African Maritime Authority held its first gender-based violence seminar in South Africa. At the heart of this was to understand the challenges that are faced by the women seafarers, specifically women in performing their day-to-day jobs, and to register why women choose most often to leave the work at sea. From the discussions, it was clear that the recruitment, retention policies are lacking and have not been tailored to cater for the employment of women. Therefore, what are some of the best practices for supporting women during the recruitment, retention, and promotion phase of their career within the maritime? I'm going to ask if Mozambique can take that question, as well as Gabo. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the invitation to be here in Kenya, my first time. So, begin the response, I would like to share with you the experience of a small country, that's Cape Verde. 500,000 people, but we had in the recent past a woman occupying the Minister of Transport and Blue Economy during 4 years. Okay. In Cape Verde, all the all the maritime institutions have an obligation to take a woman to the board of directors. In my case, I am one of the board of directors, the Maritime Administration, and my colleague is a woman, and the Port Administration has a woman, and the university schools. So, in 2019, we create public legislation that enforce all the maritime institutions to have a woman in their border. Okay, so I think is a good idea for both the country here. They're not small country, but they can bring some small idea, and put this in the paper, in the legislation, because the woman, the importance of the woman is in all the sector. Everyone here are sure the importance that the woman have in our house, in our job, the respect that we have each other. So we can do the next step to create the legislation to improve this achievement.
Thank you very much for the response. I'm going to then ask if Mozambique could come in looking at what is the support or best practice for supporting women during the recruitment, retention, and promotion phase of their career.
Good afternoon, and thank you. First, I would like to address my congratulations to Kenya by appointing a woman who I respect too much for being elected as AAMA Secretary General, Mrs. Nancy. I have known her for long years, and then I know she has improved a lot, KMA. And then if it was me, I should say, myself, I can support her appointment. The next one, there is a sentence that I used to say, saying, if you leave the woman behind, make sure you remember your mother. Telling that, I want to highlight how we are in our country, although we have some challenges. First, I want to take you to my country. It's a country of, it has about 3,000 kilometers of coastline, and then a population of about 32 million, and then that population, 21.37 are women. Recognizing that, and then the government is moving to parity, saying that 50-50 in the government. Means in the cabinet of ministers, we have the more than, almost 50% are women. Even the president of our Republic Assembly is a woman. Coming to our sector, what we have seen is that we are a young country. We have reached independence since 1975. Our legislation is still the old one. But what we have seen is that there is a problem of knowledge. You cannot encourage anyone if he doesn't know what and how it's going to participate. So there is a challenge in terms of legislation. There is a challenge in terms of conditions of board of ships. there is a challenge in terms of encouragement. What I'm saying is that our legislation by now is not quite enough to encourage women to participate in the maritime sector. But what was done until now is that in almost 60 years, the Director General has appointed a woman, that is my colleague, that is here, Mr. Catherine, as the provincial representative of our institution. And then the other one was appointed as a districtal representative, as a delegate, districtal representative of our institution. Last month, there was a launched, there were launched vacancies for some cabinets in our institution, as long as our institution was created in 2021. And then women were encouraged to participate on occupying those vacancies. So what is the way to go is concerning the adoption of and reviewing of legislation so that we can encourage the participation of women in maritime sector. As Capvet said, that is the first step. If the legislation is not encouraged the woman, it's difficult to implement any framework. Also, we have an association that we call it AAMA. That is an association of women that was created in 2018. I think the women from Umeza, they know that it exists. And then the Gazette was published in 2019. It is covering now 80 women in this association. So all these some steps that we are taking forward so that we can encourage the recruitment and retention of women. Also, we are trying in our cabinet, we are trying to move a step forward in order to make the women understand that they are as equal as men in terms of strength, in terms of participating in the development of maritime sector. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. And I think what came out for me from the discussions from both the gentlemen is the fact that it needs to be a deliberate, and you need to be unapologetic when it comes to including women within the maritime. And for as long as we are iffy about the issues when it comes to women, we're never going to win this challenge. So I'm grateful for the fact that what is coming out is that from your countries, you have been deliberate and clear and unapologetic about what is it that is required in terms of ensuring that you attract more women, you retain them within the maritime sector. I will move to the next question. Now, I'm very clear about the fact that when it comes to the challenge of increasing the number of women within the maritime and also creating a conducive environment, that it's a challenge that is not only for government. Now, government will set the policies, but there are implementers that need to implement those policies. And here, I'm specifically speaking about the ship owners, the manning organizations, etc. And therefore, my question is going to be, how can government and the industry work together to promote gender diversity and equality in the maritime industry? And what are some of the most important policy changes that should be made by government? And I'm going to ask if Cameroon, as well as Madam Nancy, if you can take or respond to this question.
Allô. Oh. Merci, Madame, de me passer la parole sur ce très grand sujet que, au Cameroun, nous abordons très délicatement. Avant de prendre la parole pour répondre à ce sujet, Madame, permettez-moi de de remercier sincèrement le Kenya pour avoir organisé ce grand séminaire. Et nos remerciements vont jusqu'à l'OMI, qui est présent. Nous le remercions très grandement pour l'assistance technique qu'elle nous apporte. Malgré le Covid-19 qui est passé, le Cameroun a suivi un audit général l'année dernière, en 2022. Cet audit a été accompagné également de la mise en place de la politique nationale de la Maritime au Cameroun. Cette année, il y a une semaine, nous avons également suivi un accompagnement pour ce que le Cameroun sorte de la liste dite noire, donc entrer dans la liste blanche. L'OMI a envoyé un expert de haut niveau. Et cet expert est rentré la semaine dernière. La semaine prochaine, nous allons être accompagnés par l'OMI pour que le Cameroun ait un système de sauvetage et de recherche à mer. Nous, une fois de plus, nous remercions très sincèrement l'Organisation Maritime Internationale. Sur ces remerciements, Madame, nous allons répondre à cette question. Tous ces accompagnements que je venais de citer ici étaient avec les femmes. Vous avez parlé de la politique nationale maritime au Cameroun. D'abord, il y a tout un ministère appelé ministère de la femme qui est créé au Cameroun. Ce ministère veille, je dis bien veille. Vous savez, quand les femmes ont leur intérêt, elles ne s'amusent pas. Elles veillent à ce que les femmes dans le domaine maritime soient au moins à 30% lors de recrutement. Dans ma direction, parce que je me suis présent, je suis directeur des affaires maritimes et des voies navigables au Cameroun. Sur 6 postes de responsabilité, je dirais, y compris les postes à l'extérieur, parce que le Cameroun compte 4 ports. Il y a le port de Limbé, le port de Kribi, le port de Douala et le port de Garan. Dans les ports, dans nos ports que je viens de citer, les femmes occupent une place très prépondérante, c'est-à-dire lors du recrutement dans les métiers portuaires, dans les domaines portuaires, le ministère des Transports, le ministère des Femmes et des Familles a exigé qu'il y ait au moins, comme je viens de citer, 30% de femmes. Et c'est ce qu'on applique aujourd'hui. Il y a toute une campagne lors de recrutement dans le domaine maritime que les femmes doivent être impérativement recrutées. Il y a vraiment un problème que quelqu'un vient de soulever tout à l'heure, c'est un problème de culture. Vous savez, avec la multitude de cultures aujourd'hui, il y a une susceptibilité. Les femmes dans certaines régions du Cameroun ne travaillent pas dans les métiers, ne font pas les métiers portuaires parce que peut-être c'est leur religion ou c'est leur culture qui les autorise à le faire. Mais sur 10 régions que compte le Cameroun, il y a au moins 9 qui encouragent les femmes à faire dans le domaine maritime. L'OMI, l'année passée, il y a 2 semaines, a organisé une formation uniquement dans le domaine portuaire où les femmes sont seules à présenter cette formation. Cette formation aura lieu au mois de juin, si je me trompe, si mes souvenirs sont exacts, au mois de juin 2023. Et il y avait toute une campagne de sensibilisation qui a été menée dans toutes les régions pour que les femmes puissent faire cette formation, puissent au moins postuler avant qu'elles soient recrutées. Le Cameroun compte actuellement au moins 3 à 4 centres de formation et également plus de 5 ou 6 sociétés de placement dans les gens de mer. Ces entreprises ont pour recommandation, s'il y a 5 postes, les femmes doivent en occuper au moins 2. Malheureusement, on ne peut pas seulement parler de maritime, ceux qui vont naviguer, parce que dans la maritime, il y a ceux qui travaillent à terre et ceux qui travaillent à mer. Mais ici, le Cameroun n'a pas encore une grande flotte. On ne peut pas parler exactement des femmes qui font dans des navigations à mer. Mais il y en a qui naviguent à terre, c'est-à-dire ils font comme je viens de dire, ils occupent de très grandes responsabilités. Alors, maintenant, ce que je propose pour que les femmes soient encouragées, si j'avais une décision à prendre, madame, je prierais que dans les prochains jours ou les prochaines années, que les femmes occupent le poste de secrétariat général de l'Organisation Maritime Internationale. Et que cette femme, si elle venait à être nommée, merci, cette femme venait à être nommée, elle va beaucoup œuvrer, et que Lomi a parlé ici qu'il n'y a pas d'antenne comme dans d'autres organisations. Mais je suggère également que l'OMI, qui est trop fermé, parce que ce n'est pas très connu comme les autres organisations, puisse étendre d'une manière régionalement. C'est-à-dire que aller représenter au moins, avoir un point focal dans une région où au moins, s'il y a 10 points focaux, que les femmes en occupent au moins 2 ou 3. Et que ces femmes devaient avoir pour mission d'aller dans tout le monde entier, de sensibiliser d'abord les femmes à faire ce métier maritime, qui est un métier très noble, parce que, je vous jure, madame, parmi les responsables que nous avons au Cameroun, qui occupent des postes de transport maritime, les femmes sont très, très battantes et elles sont très responsables quand elles occupent un poste de stratégique. Elles les assument normalement. Donc, voilà, madame, mes doléances que je pourrais proposer. Je me résume, et pour que je me résume encore, c'est que s'il y a un poste de secrétariat général à donner dans les prochains jours, que ça soit occupé par la femme. Et que l'OMI donne les missions beaucoup plus égaliennes à ces points focaux de faire la publicité, de faire la promotion de l'Organisation Maritime Internationale pour des femmes, pour que les femmes adhèrent massivement à cette prestigieuse activité qu'on appelle maritime. Merci, madame.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to my colleague panelists for those very insightful points, not only because he rooted for women, for a woman SG, but for all the other issues. Now, I believe that the maritime sector, the industry has a very big role to play, because the employees and the government cannot work alone. So it must be collaboration between the three arms. And therefore, having a collaborative arrangement between the government and the private sector in terms of the ship owners, and seeing the implementation of the policies that are made in a robust and very decisive manner is what will get us out of the problems that we have. Like we have seen, we still need to do a lot more. We need to be intentional, we need to be proactive, and this is an everyday issue that we need to tackle in order to see diversity and inclusivity at the level that will benefit the industry. And I want to say that the first thing we need to do is to insulate the recruitment process so that it's not influenced by unconscious bias, because it's an industry that has gone on this way for a very long time. So the biases may be ingrained in us, and we must make, therefore, a very intentional step to be able to remove that bias. We've seen, again, flexi working hours will help the women to be able to play the double role. We have seen that women they can do both roles. We are multitaskers, so just a little support, we will be able to do that. There is, talking to young people or people who've been in the industry, the young ladies, they say that there is a very strong reluctance of the ship owners to invest in women, because the mindset or the view set is that a woman with a family will not be as committed to the workplace, and therefore bad investment for the ship owner. And this is where the government could come in and incentivize such ship owners in order, or work together, so that they don't feel that they're throwing good money after bad, and we can all collaborate in order to bring up more women in this. Improving workplace conditions, that's another issue that we must deal with in order to make them sensitive to women's needs. And in this case, we're talking about not just on the ships, but also on shore and also other working places, so that they can accommodate more women. For example, if you talk of the safety equipment, just a basic issue. If we are sensitive and we are able to bring sizes that fit all shapes, sizes, I look sometimes at the tiny women going on board and imagining what they are going to be faced with. And those are some of the small issues that we can do. But of course, also the implementation of policies. The government will make the policies, but when we go on board, especially on the issue you mentioned on the last question that we were dealing with on gender, the violence, how do we make sure that we insulate the ladies or the other people out of gender, violence, unless we can train all genders together, sensitize them, make sure that they are not carrying their biases. For example, the tradition, maybe we don't understand personal space in the same manner coming from different jurisdictions, and therefore sensitizing and training them together, being in a captive environment, this becomes even more necessary, so that we are all looking at the issue from the same page, and we do not have pockets of not understanding, and therefore it will encourage all the players to be able to know this is personal space. Because some of the issues, some of the cases you hear, it was, some of the cases that have happened, it's because maybe the young lady didn't understand the boundaries or the invitations or the language. So having a common training and implementation would help. But most important, I want to end it by saying that we need to do things differently. We've done all this. IMO has been very active. We've got the networks. We've got now the Women's Day. We've got the Gender Award. But we're still at 2%. So we need to now make a leapfrog into the next, steps that we must make. We must make in order to make sure that we have more women in the sector, particularly coming into the transition that is facing us. We can't afford to leave so many of the skills and talents behind just because we did not do what we needed to do. And I want to end it by citing from a lady who was very strong in the public education sector in the US, Hannah Rosenthal, talking about women in higher education leadership. She said thus: we have to be a little more comfortable as making a few people a little more uncomfortable, so that we can look back in 30 years and say, we did make a difference. So we are being called upon to do, not business as usual, but to take drastic steps. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. And I would have loved to add or say a few words, but I think time is against me. I've just been warned that I've got 10 minutes. So with that said, allow me to move to my last questions. Then I'm going to ask for all panel members to give their contribution to this last question.
Sorry, I have to jump in. It's a very important issue. We have a security company that brought the DSA, and they want to leave. So, if you were sponsored by IMO, and you have still not received your DSA, we've brought them to the conference room. Kindly go to the back there and collect your DSA. We have 3 of them on the podium. I will have to pull them one after the other to do that. Or else they take the DSA away, and I don't know how to get them back. Please. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. I guess I can't stand between people and money. With that said, maybe let me pose the question. Let me ask the question, and just to open it up, the World Bank brief of September 25, 2019 states that gender-based violence or violence against women and girls can be termed as a global pandemic that affects 1 in 3 women in a lifetime. It is estimated that about 35 of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence. And 7% of the women have been sexually assaulted by someone other than a partner. This probably accounts for inland reported cases, but I guess we might never know what the exact percentage for such a pandemic is at sea, as most of them go unreported. A 2014 survey by the International Transport Workers Federation and its partners revealed that 17% of women seafarers have reported sexual harassment as an issue. I'm positive that there is more, and from the discussions that we took in South Africa on gender-based violence, there are many that go unreported. My question is, what programs do we need to develop, and what programs have we developed in our own countries or organizations to raise awareness, to create a platform that allows for the reporting of such gender-based incidents, and also to ensure consequence management for such criminal acts? And I'm going to ask all of the panel members if they can kindly respond to that. Thanks.
En ce qui concerne la violence faite aux femmes, je pense qu'il y a des choses qu'il faudrait faire pour éviter un tout petit peu cela. Il s'agit tout d'abord de faire en sorte que la femme ait toute la protection possible. Il faudrait aussi créer ou améliorer les lois relatives à la protection de la femme dans les lieux de travail. Je pense aussi qu'en ce qui concerne la violence, il faudrait sensibiliser sur la notion d'harcèlement et de violence et faire en sorte que la femme comprenne et qu'elle ait le soutien possible lorsqu'il y a eu lieu des harcèlements ou de la violence. Il faudrait, j'ai pensé à une création d'un centre d'écoute et de soutien de la femme. Et ce centre, ça serait mieux qu'il soit mis en place dans les ports. Dans ce sens aussi, je pense que je continue sur la sensibilisation. La sensibilisation est très importante parce que beaucoup de femmes ignorent ce que c'est l'harcèlement et des fois ils confondent. Donc il faudrait leur faire comprendre, leur sensibiliser et faire en sorte à ce qu'elle ait la notion, à ce qu'elle comprenne ce qu'il faut faire et puis être soutenue, suivie et enfin être à l'écoute. Il faudrait qu'elle soit à l'écoute. Bon, je vous remercie.
Mr. Lopez, I think you can also pick up. It was a question that was also directed to you based on the gender-based violence. And I mean, let me maybe repeat. It says, what programs do we need to, or have you developed in your country to raise awareness, create platforms that allow for the reporting of gender-based violence, and also ensure consequence management for the criminal act?
Okay. In my country, in terms of law, the gender violence is a public law. So everyone that see a violence can contact the police, the authority. But I think the challenge is not to think only in our country. I think that the countries that included on the Women Association, the non-governmental association, can do it better than the government. We don't have to wait for the governance initiative. So if we join each other, we can do better for Africa, better for women, and this, yes, okay.
Alors, ok, madame, concernant ce problème de violence faite aux femmes, comme je l'ai dit au Cameroun, il y a tout un ministère qui s'occupe de genre au Cameroun, ministère des femmes. Alors, comme nous sommes dans le cadre le maritime qui est régi par l'Organisation maritime internationale, régi à plusieurs instruments, pardon, l'OMI a plusieurs instruments. Pas sorti un article jusqu'à présent des différents instruments de l'OMI où il a écrit quand une femme a subi le harcèlement dans un navire, il faut que par exemple l'armateur ou ce navire soit pénalisé. Par exemple, c'est au cas où il y a un signalement quelque part. Je crois que l'OMI n'a pas encore sorti ce genre d'article. Ce n'est pas encore sorti. Je souhaiterais qu'il y ait un instrument quelque part où il sera signalé si une femme est harcelée dans un navire, que ce commandant soit un peu suspendu comme un permis. Si vous faites une erreur d'ordre de conduite, c'est le permis qu'on retire. Il faut que ce commandant soit suspendu pendant 1 ou 2 ou 3 mois. Il ne navigue pas. Alors, il y a quelqu'un qui a parlé également d'un centre d'écoute. Il faut qu'il y ait établir une plateforme de signalement. Une plateforme, un code. L'OMI devait sortir un numéro vert qui sera signalé directement à Londres au cas où une femme serait harcelée quelque part. Voilà, madame, ce que je pourrais proposer. Merci.
Thank you. In Mozambique, through the law 29 in 2009 was approved the law against the violence against women. In Mozambique, any violence, any kind of violence against women is a crime. Doesn't matter what kind. Doesn't matter where. If it's on board, if it's on land or on shore, doesn't matter. So we know that are not the laws that solve the problem, but education, it has a key role because it's a matter of mentality that must be changed. So main campaign involving churches and NGOs are being done to sensitize men not to violate or address violence against women. Thank you.
Thank you. On GBV is a crime just like any other crime, and therefore it is treated as such. However, we must recognize that it is very difficult in the water bodies, especially in shipping, where it is usually outside the jurisdiction of the country. So, and they are not usually manned by a gender desk at the police station like other crimes in Kenya. So I can mention this, that we have an inspector, ITF inspector in Kenya, and I'm sure in most countries they are manned by one. And these are usually reported through their machineries using their normal free SMSs, and they can escalate that issue all the way back to the ITF office in London. So what can we do about it, since it is not as easy as we have all mentioned? Peer education to the girls and the boys. When we are training them, we need to let them understand what we have also mentioned as personal space, personal hygiene, and for them to understand the mitigations against this kind of violence. We also want to mention that use of ICTs is now quite prevalent. We are able to use your phone, you're able to make that call without really being identified. In fact, you can almost video if you feel that it is something you can do. So apart from that, in Wamesa, we do mentoring, especially for the new recruits. We have had quite a number in the recent past who are going to the cruising environment and also the technical area in shipping. We tell them about a lot about the environment on the ship, the environment where they are going to go, and how to behave, and also we are facilitated for their mental health. Because without that, they will go out there and believe that they are in the environment where they were at home, play with the boys or the girls, and it will not be as business as usual. So the other item I would want to say, as Africa, we need to advocate for decent work and the right for free work from violence for all workers, not just women, but specifically in this case, we need to mention this. Then organizations such as ITF, which I've already mentioned, facilitate inspections at the port. They check what is happening, they see whether the situations are favorable, and if they are not favorable, then this is reported through their machinery. And whenever it is possible, we need to be able to support the boys and the girls, because without that, gender violence is always propagated by opposite sex, sometimes same sex, and at that point I want Nancy to say something about that.
Now, I've been trapped because we were discussing with her, saying that, sexual violence may be on both sexes. But of course, today we are speaking about the ladies, but we need to recognize that awareness and training needs to be imparted on both sexes, because then we cover the whole cycle, and then they are more aware and they feel safe. They have an environment where they are not harassed. But then I think the other most important thing when we work with industry is the tendency to be marked. If you have complained, then tagged and labeled. as problems. So we need to support and to work together with the industry that those tags are not imposed, and then we give more freedom to the victims to feel safe, to report knowing that they are not going to be victimized simply because maybe they've reported someone of more influence and then the system closes up on them. That is very, very important also. Thank you.
Yeah. For Madagascar, Madagascar has adopted gender-based violence law in 2020. And it takes into account all sectors, including seafarers. However, maritime administration, ship owner, and WMESA ensure awareness raising and should support awareness raising in gender-based violence, especially towards women seafarers. Also, Madagascar has set up National Maritime Labour Tripartite Board. It is a platform to discuss number of issues such as the gender-based violence. And until now, no case was reported yet in women seafarers. Maybe there is women victims who is victims of gender-based violence, but they don't want to report because of social judgment. Something we have to put in awareness raising is to encourage women to report if they are victims of gender-based violence. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the response from the panel. I think what is important and what I'm hearing is, number one, education and raising the awareness for such crime. But also what I think I liked the most, and which is difficult, you're right, the jurisdiction of where the case actually happens. One of the questions that I was asked when we were interviewed in South Africa on this matter is what happens if a seafarer, a South African seafarer, is molested, raped in Ghana? Where do they report? And even if they do report, do the law officials within Ghana know how to be able to handle that specific case? Not even Ghana, do even South Africa understand on how to be able to deal with a rape that has happened at sea? Do we even have rape kits that are available in our ships? But second, I mean, it is difficult to even investigate a rape case that happens on land. How difficult is it to investigate a rape case that actually happens at sea? And these are questions that we need to answer, all of us sitting in this room, so that we can be able to protect our seafarers, both female and male, when they go out there. With that said, and I think my time is up, my panel, thank you very much. I think I've enjoyed having this session with you. You've educated me. I'm hoping that I will take most of the ideas that you have provided, and we will also improve the processes and activities that we have in South Africa. I thank you. God bless.
Thank you very much, Madam Zama, for leading this session very ably. I'm sure you're more than convinced that at the end of this session of the benefits for continued empowerment of women in the maritime sector. We've run out of time, and as my colleague will explain, there's quite a bit of activities that will follow. And noting that we have run out of time, kindly allow us to end this session and without questions from the delegates. Thank you. Please, I call upon my colleague Mwanaulu to end with the admin part of this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. So just some announcements on how to proceed. So after this session, we will need to take a group photo. The group photo will be taken outside the building. As you step out, where you came in through security, just outside there at the gardens, we'll have staff to show you, to direct you on how we'll take the group photos. There are a number of groups that needs to be taken, and we'll have one big group photo. For tomorrow, the session will start at 9:30 in the morning. So kindly, please be seated by 9:15 so that we can keep time. We seem to have quite a lot to discuss, and I think the questions and the sessions seem to be very interesting. We'd also like to... Thank you, Mr. Azu. He has requested that we take at least 2 questions, very brief. So we'll do this after I finish the announcements. We also have a cocktail, which is more of the networking session, which will start at 7 p.m. And this will be at the area where you had your lunch. There is a garden, the lawns just down there. You'll have ushers to usher you there. So this will start at 7 p.m. We'll also have vehicles transporting the delegates to their hotels after the photo session so that you can freshen up and be back. So kindly please keep time so that we can be able to have the networking session. I'm sure you'll be able to interact, know each other. You will meet some of the panelists and you can also ask more questions. So for the, I would like to then open up the floor for the questions on the behest of Mr. Azu and the IMO team. Can we have some microphones going round? Support him. Yes, we will start with Madam Betty here. Then I will take... we have Madam Funmi. I'm told only 2 questions. And we are giving the ladies preference. The men, we will have to negotiate during the cocktail session. So be nice to the ladies. Yes, Betty. Can we have a microphone here, please? Yes, lady.
Thank you. Can you please secure me because of these men around me? They want me to report the gender-based violence on board. My name is Betty McKenna. I work for International Transport Workers Federation. I'm an ITF inspector. I board a ship in Kenya. And I want to tell the other Africans that we have Ghana inspector, a female. We also have Senegal, we have Nigeria, we have Egypt, and the other countries, some have already retired, but I'm very sure that we'll have more inspectors. The only request to IMO, please talk to ITF to increase inspectors in Africa, because they are less. My first is to appreciate the team, and also to say thank you very much for the issues of the gender and women on board the vessels. And I know that we have a lot of women in the shipping industry, in the ports and the landlord, a lot. But when it comes to on board the vessel, we have few ladies. But we have the big number on women in the cruise ship. For AAMA and IMO, maybe mine will be, maybe not to the panels, is to ask AAMA and IMO, please, can we have a discussion with ship owners? Why? Because the Africa fleet does not put women on board their vessels. When I'm speaking African fleet, I am saying the Africa ships. When the ship operate within Africa, they don't have women on board. And if they have women, they have an Ukrainian woman or a Russian woman, but not an African. When we talk as inspectors, when I asked, I'm told the fleet cover a lot in Africa. Women will be covered a lot in other nationality, like other fleet, but not in Africa. So we need to have this discussion with ship owners. We need to talk. We need to beg them. We need to talk to them well. Please, this is your job as administration. We want to see fleet of African women. When I board this ship, I want to see the ship owner, the ship contract, the ship owner. Can we speak this language? Let's go to that board and speak to ship. Can we go to this, the meetings for ship owners? And we talk to them. And we ask them, African women can work on board these African ships. What is the big deal in the ships? If I'm a ship inspector like me, as a first inspector in Kenya and Africa, other women can do it. Second is the issue of, I know we need more girls on board the vessel, but because we have FOC flag, mostly in Africa, FOC flag, IMO, can you help us to discuss with these countries which have FOC flag, is why they can't employ women in these vessels. FOC flag is the worst flags, I am telling you, as ITF inspector. I'm sorry to say for those countries who have FOC flag, but they're not fit for women, and they're not good for women. So if IMO can sit down with these countries, try to see how you can remove this FOC. You don't need to be put FOC for ITF, because we know, we have been given the list of FOC, and we look at it as Africa majority. Even Panama, the big flag, yes, it's a FOC flag. Liberia is a FOC flag. But what it must affect the African more, because the ship owners in Africa, because they have FOC flag, it is very rare to employ African girls on board the vessel. The other one is, I want to appreciate Madam Nancy, Ambassador. Thank you for the good job. You have managed Kenya to have recruited on board cruise ship 50-50, men and women, according to our data. 50-50 for Kenya. You have managed to do that. In cruise ship, we're expecting more, to get more in the container vessels and other tanker for women. We know that we have women that can do that. The last is issue education. Can AAMA all over the Africa give scholarship to girls? We are talking about maritime education. Why do we not have women, girls to be given? When you look at the ministries we have in the country, they give doctors scholarship, law scholarship, IT scholarship. But when it comes to maritime, how many countries do we have in Africa give scholarship to girls to do maritime education? Because if you look at as a nautical science daughter, who she wants to do maybe a degree level. We don't have, we have few universities to do degree. Maybe we have Ghana. Maybe we have Nigeria, which offer degree level. But when it comes to degree level of a nautical science, a girl must go to Egypt. Egypt is part of us, yes. She has to go to Oman. She has to go to Ghana. She has to go to London. But the parents need to pay for the school fees. It's too expensive. Can AAMA look at the structure of education in Africa and give scholarship to these girls and make sure that we have more girls than the boys in Africa? Please, we help. And I want to thank you. That I want to tell you, we have an SMS on board the vessels for all GVB reports, all cases, but what we need is AAMA to ask for those reports in IMO and ITF. You need to ask for them. And so that we can know, so that we know how many Africans have been harassed. We know we have been having a lot of cases for South Africans, but we want to know how many, because this is 17% is all over the whole country. But what about Africa? So we need to be working very close with ITF, ship owners, so that we can get this report. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Betty, for those insights. I believe AAMA has taken note. I would like to take Madam Funmi, the Secretary General of African Ship Owners. She can be able to give us a few comments.
IMO, you paid for me to come here, only for the bullets. And I'm trying to. Thank you. You still have an option of one more question. Mine is answers and quick interventions. First and foremost, Madam, thank you. There was a question. There is rape on board. Whether it is reported or not, Maritime Administrations being here present, please note there is rape on board. Just as we find rape on land not being reported, there is rape on board. If you have other ways of getting to these women, they will share with you. Thank you. Why do we not have women? I'm going to use a proverb so that I'm not shut down. It is only what you buy, what you own, that you can put your brother and sister on board. Who understands the proverb? African flagged vessels. I have in my computer here database of African flagged vessels. The ownership is not within Africa. Therefore, we cannot employ Africans. We cannot give training berths on the few vessels that we own. That's the truth, and that's the relevance of African Ship Owners Association. There would be no need for this if we owned the flags, if we owned the vessels that are flagged in Africa. What is the solution? I am just going to address female participation in ship ownership, nothing else. First and foremost, IMO. Just as we were sitting here, we got circulars from IMO. No, William, you are still here. Go. Director, we got a circular on the May 18th. Through your person, we want to appreciate IMO. That was a brilliant move to have a day dedicated to women. You have sent a circular round. There's still more maritime women organizations that need to be included in those. Yes, William, yes, but let's make a name. Bring us. There's more of us so that we would have a robust discussion. Secondly, how do you encourage participation, women participation in shipping, ship ownership? I'm not talking about every other thing. Let us flaunt those women who have been bold to own and manage ships within Africa. They may be few, but let's flaunt them. May 18th in IMO in London. You will see that I deliberately wore this so that you would recognize me as a ship owner. That is to say, I am lobbying for an invitation, paid for. Thank you. AAMA, our wish for you. You want to have women in ship ownership. Can we go back to the African Ship Registrars Forum? It has not been activated. We would suggest to you, ship registrars, Lloyd's of London were conducting trainings for ship registrars. Could we ask through the IMO that we look into it, and can we work with IMO? Whilst you were still in Nigeria, we had, those were when you were younger, but now you're an old man. A ship registrars forum training organized by IMO, whatever. And please, do not accept any other person but females. You know why? They're more sympathetic. They understand. The man is brutish. He's not going to listen to this female who wants to own ships, and so who is she? So through your persons here, very well represented, we're asking that the African Ship Registrars Forum be revived, and more women, or all women ship registrars. I started off as a ship registrar. Today I am directing ship owners. Finally, it must be a dedicated thing. You do not start, thank you for the government who started initiating at secondary school level. You don't make ship owners when they are already in the university. No. He must be trained, he must be worked at, she must have an inclination to look at ship ownership. And all administrations here present, we are asking that initiate the women groups, starting from the Ministry of Women Affairs in each country, to start talking maritime. You cannot do it alone. The Minister of Transport cannot do it alone. He must work with his partner in the Ministry of Women Affairs. On behalf of the African ship owners, we say thank you for this very brilliant initiative, and we look forward to being sponsored to keep coming here. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, it's sorry that I have to take the microphone. At this time, I speak as Liberia's alternate permanent representative to the IMO, because my country name was mentioned. And since it was mentioned, it's important that we set the record straight. Firstly, in the international shipping world, there's nothing like FOC flag. Flag of convenience doesn't exist. What we have is open registry and either closed or national registries. So those things need to be corrected. And the two countries named mentioned, Panama and Liberia, 40% of IMO budget are paid by those countries. So let's get it straight, 40%. Liberia paid $5 million plus, Panama almost $7 million. You check IMO's budget. So having said that, we all are in Africa's interest. We want to see women advance in maritime affairs. I don't need to tell you that Liberia elected the first female president in Africa. I don't need to tell you that my vice president is a woman. I don't need to tell you that 2 senior deputy commissioners are women across the sector. They are there. Now, if we want to get women on board ships and whatnot, it is not to attack fellow African countries. That's what the ITF lady has done. I could attack the ITF. I could question you, who interests are you representing? Are you representing external interests, or are you representing internal interests? As a matter of fact, the registries that you cannot check, that you cannot see people at the closed or national registry, and we have just heard ships are not owned by Africans. That's where the problem lies. And until we start owning those ships, we can talk forever. Thank you. I just need to set the record straight.
Thank you. It's a very, very healthy discussion. I think the cocktail will be very, very lively. ITF, please buy him a drink and resolve it. Thank you. We really need to go and take the photo session so that we can freshen up and come back for the cocktail. It has been a very interesting day. We really thank you for your indulgence and your patience. So please, let's proceed for the photo session, and we can then meet at the cocktail. Have a good evening. Thank you.